Shishang was a disgusting, lonely loser whose brain cells were fried from playing shameful games every night. However, everything changed when he was given overpowered abilities by the game goddess to summon any girl he wanted and watch her clap the Demon King. The story kicks off in the game world where Shishang is up against the final boss, a Demon King obsessed with creating a world free of despair, where humans don't exist. Realizing that Shishang stood in the way of his apocalyptic vision, the demon boss unleashed a deadly inferno, intending to barbecue him to crisp. But just as the flames were about to consume Shishang, his game world wives, a harem of IG baddies, appeared, ready to throw down and protect their man. With a flurry of energy blasts, rapid-fire slashes, and perfectly timed combo attacks, they dealt heavy damage to the demon boss. However, the Demon King thought he could never be isekai'd, but suddenly his misty body began to degenerate. That instant, the Demon King disappeared, promising to be back, and the next time, they won't be so lucky. As the dust settled, Jean, one of Shishang's curvy wives and knight with massive cannons the side of his head, moved in for a celebratory kiss to Shishang. But before she could land it, the rest of the girls glared, shouting at her for monopolizing the hot stuff and being too thirsty, reminding her that Shishang belonged to all of them. The next day, back in the real world, Shishang dozed in class after an all-night session of hammering his wives in the game world. However, his nap didn't go unnoticed as the teacher, clearly unimpressed, nailed him with a piece of chalk, hitting his worthless head with laser-like precision, jolting him out of dreamland. In his half-awake state, Shishang, still thinking he was in the game, yelled at the teacher for daring to attack a master like him. Realizing where he was, embarrassment washed over him as the furious teacher roasted him and said that his useless attitude was why he was the only failure in the class. Shishang tried explaining that his gaming was to blame for his exhaustion, but the teacher just questioned whether he was fine. Later that day, walking down a dark alley, he vented to his childhood friend over the phone about how badly he was treated at school. He rambled about his in-game wives and how gaming was his one true joy, oblivious to what was lurking in the shadows. Suddenly, a demon baddie named Morrigan appeared from the darkness, calling him an anomaly and stating she'd been waiting for him. However, Shishang had absolutely no idea who the demon girl was and wondered why the heck she had been waiting for him. The evil hottie, radiating dangerous energy, told him that she had come to play with his long sword.
What do you mean by that?
But before he could react, two terrifying velociraptors emerged from the shadows. With a wicked grin, the Ender demon commanded her beasts to end Shishang's worthless life for good. That moment, the velociraptors charged, their teeth sinking into Shishang, ripping into his flesh as blood splattered everywhere. Just when the demon girl thought her prey was finished, a blinding beam of light shot down from the sky. On seeing the bright light, the demon girl was stunned and wondered what could be powerful enough to exude such a great aura. From within the dazzling light, Jean emerged, ready to defend her man, no matter the odds. The next day, Shishang, who had fainted from the terror of nearly becoming down of dinner, woke up with a pounding headache. As he groaned, a voice called out, "Commander." He turned to find Jean by his side. Shocked, Shishang couldn't believe his eyes. His game waifu was right there in the real world, staring at him. He immediately asked how she ended up here. Jean calmly replied that he had summoned her the night before, which left Shishang stunned. Suddenly, flashes of memory came rushing back. Him being attacked by those vicious velociraptors in the alley. Just before he was about to be torn apart, a strange card interface appeared before him. Faced with two options, he instinctively clicked the Accept button. Just then, a blinding light engulfed him, and within the light, Jean materialized while he passed out. Still processing everything that was happening, Shishang asked Jean if she knew anything about the mysterious woman Morrigan, who had attacked him. Jean explained that Morrigan was the second in command to the Demon Queen and one of the 12 Pillars. Jean went on to reveal that Morrigan and her demons had invaded her once peaceful kingdom, capturing the capital and even isekai'ing the king. Her hometown was left in ruins, and the common people lost all hope. Hearing this, Shishang realized it was her tragic backstory from the game in real time. Jean continued, explaining that after the invasion, she earned the trust of the crown prince and bishop, who granted her command of the army. Despite her victories on the battlefield, she could never defeat the demon occupying the capital. Jean further revealed that Morrigan's powers included enchantment and shape-shifting, which is how she had summoned those velociraptors. Following this, Jean stared out the window, and she admired the peaceful world around her. Noticing how entranced Jean was with his world, The brain-dead Simba asked if she'd like to take a stroll through the city, and she eagerly agreed. But Xia Shang quickly pointed out that with her sus thirst trap outfit, she'd probably break the internet and cause quite a commotion if they stepped out like that. So later that day, Xia Shang took Jean on a tour of the city, and she was completely mesmerized by everything she saw. When they reached the marketplace, she marveled at the vibrant stalls and lively crowds, mistaking it for a king's palace. Xia Shang laughed and told her it was just a place where people bought and sold goods. He then promised to buy her some new clothes, which thrilled Jean, as she hadn't gotten any new outfits in ages. At the clothing store, Jean wasted no time trying on some very demure, very revealing outfits. She struck pose after pose, each one somehow more sultry than the last, causing Xia Shang's cultured brain to go into overdrive. His mind raced with every thirst trap angle she pulled off, which caused his Excalibur to rise to the occasion, and his face burned redder than a fire truck. Jean didn't stop there and gave another plot-inducing pose that fried his brain cells, causing his head to smoke from overheating. Then came the final outfit, a bunny cat hybrid costume that landed the fatal blow, knocking the dude out like a bag of potatoes. Shortly after, Xia Shang and Jean chilled at the park. Xia Shang then offered her a hamburger and a drink, and while they ate, he decided to explore the cart interface system further. He activated it with a single click, expecting a simple menu screen, but was shocked as he was suddenly sucked into the system interface itself. Just then, a voice welcomed him, and when he looked closer, he was stunned to see a literal rat with a BBL. The thick rodent then introduced herself as Alice, his exclusive AI system. Meanwhile, Xia Shang, still staring, was completely entranced with her massive milkers. Alice, who immediately noticed his cultured stare, roasted him, calling him a disgusting loner. Alice then began to explain the card system to Xia Shang, telling him he could use his in-game currency to get rewards, items, skills, and even characters. After the boring explanation, she mocked Xia Shang, calling him a mid-tier gamer who can't possibly get any rare characters. Hearing the words mid-tier hit Xia Shang, who wondered if he heard that last part right because it felt like a punch to the ego. His gamer pride flared up immediately like a Reddit argument. He hated being called a mid-tier anything. Furious, he shouted at the pocket-sized Barbie, declaring he was no noob and that he could pull a super rare item. Alice then challenged him to prove it, so Xia Shang, with all the confidence of a man who thought luck was on his side, clicked on the special item button. Expecting a legendary SSR reward, he was instead smacked in the head with a useless game stone, damaging what few brain cells he had left. Alice then encouraged him to try again, reminding him he had 9 more free draws. But after exhausting all his free pulls, Xia Shang's face was in need of a damn screen protector after it became a mess from being pummeled by a barrage of useless items. Frustrated, he informed Alice he'd recharge his in-game currency later. However, Alice explained that he couldn't just top up with money. Instead, he'd have to defeat demon monsters that would occasionally appear in the city, earning dimensional fragments in return. One fragment guaranteed a special draw, and with 10 shards, he'd be sure to pull a rare item like a character or weapon. As the card interface disappeared, Xia Shang soon began to wonder if there were others like him. People called anomalies who had gamer abilities in the real world. He wondered if the other anomalies were able to summon characters like he did from the same game or a different game. His thoughts, however, were interrupted by Jean, who took a bite of her burger and complimented on the taste. Xia Shang, surprised, asked if it was her first time having one. When she confirmed it was, Xia Shang, trying to prove he had stacks, promised to spoil her by taking her to the food street later. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to them, they were being spied on by Zhang Yuan, Xia Shang's class monitor and fellow anomaly. And when she saw them looking all carefree and defenseless, her rage meter filled to max. Taking full advantage of the distraction, she launched an attack. With pinpoint precision, Zhang Yuan hurled a fiery flame card at them. Luckily, Jean's gamer reflexes kicked in, and she activated a magical shield just in time, deflecting the attack. Xia Shang, noticing the attack, immediately turned to see Zhang Yuan and was shocked to discover that she was also an anomaly like him. Zhang Yuan, fuming at her failed sneak attack, demanded to know who Jean was and what her relationship was with Xia Shang. Jean calmly responded that she was the commander of the Guardian Knights and had sworn to protect her commander with her life. Jean's words sounded so cliché that Zhang Yuan instantly put 2 and 2 together and realized that Jean was a game character, summoned into the real world by none other than Xia Shang. The realization that Xie Shang had the power to summon game characters into the real world shocked Zhang Yuan, which hardened her resolve to eliminate the menace. Just then, before Zhang Yuan could unleash another psycho move, Xie Shang quickly noticed that people at the park were starting to stare at them like they were a bunch of crazy people. So he suggested they continue their battle in a more secluded area. Later that night, they reconvened at the harbor. Before Zhang Yuan could start another psychotic episode, Xie Shang tried reasoning with the chaotic mean girl, asking why she was so bent on eliminating him. However, his voice of reasoning sounded like fart to the ears of Zhang Yuan. Infuriated, she told him he was the most useless MC, and then summoned her blue fiery flames to make the world a better place by sending him to Nirvana. In that intense moment, Jean stepped in to save her heartthrob, activating her magic shield and wielding her sword. Meanwhile, Xie Shang, watching Zhang Yuan's overpowered abilities, couldn't help but wondered if her powers came from a different game than the one he played. Jean, realizing she was at a disadvantage in a ranged battle, decided to make things more direct by charging at Zhang Yuan. However, she was caught off guard when Zhang Yuan proved to be just as skilled in close-quarters combat. The two girls clashed weapons fiercely, with sparks flying as their battle raged on. Zhang Yuan then summoned a fiery ball while simultaneously wielding her spear. Witnessing her baddest move, Xie Shang finally connected the dots. Zhang Yuan's combination of magic and martial arts could only mean she was using the abilities of another game called Spring and Autumn, a game famous among Magnum-obsessed girls who drooled over handsome boys with magical powers and combat skills. Seizing the moment, Xie Shang threatened to expose Zhang Yuan in class, revealing to everyone, including their teacher, that the supposedly calm and serious class captain was actually a gamer girl with weird, creepy urges. This immediately threw Zhang Yuan off her game. Furious, she abandoned her fight with Jean and bolted after Xie Shang, determined to shut him up. Meanwhile, Jean, catching her breath by the water, suddenly felt something was off. The ocean seemed to ripple ominously. In an instant, a colossal octopus monster burst forth from the depths, its tentacles smashing the ground with devastating force. Xie Shang recognized it at once. This was one of the interdimensional monsters Alice had mentioned. Zhang Yuan, ever confident, believed defeating the beast would be easy, as she handled interdimensional monsters before. She then summoned her magic, ready for battle. Jean, on the other hand, was not going to let any harm befall her babe, so she readied herself to fight. Both girls launched their attacks in perfect synchronization. Zhang Yuan unleashed a powerful electric shock, while Jean slashed through the monster's tentacles with her sword. The two fought fiercely, weakening the beast. At last, the creature retreated back into the ocean, giving them a brief moment of relief. However, just as they were about to celebrate their victory, the monster suddenly re-emerged from behind. It slammed Xie Shang into a wall and wrapped its massive tentacles around Jean and Zhang Yuan, squeezing them so tightly it nearly popped their melons. As all this happened, Morrigan watched quietly from atop the harbor, with a smirk on her face. In the heat of the moment, Jean cried out for help, her voice piercing through to an unconscious Xie Shang. The call jolted him back to consciousness, but he was quickly ensnared by the monstrous octopus's tentacles. The creature playfully tossed him around like a kite before slamming his weak ass into the ocean. Xie Shang sank deep into the water, struggling for breath as he began to drown. Seeing her beloved master in grave danger, Jean summoned all her strength to conjure a holy light. The magical shield she created shattered the octopus's tentacles, freeing her from their grip. Without hesitation, she dived into the ocean, determined to save Xie Shang. Meanwhile, Morrigan watched from atop the harbor, observing the scene like she was watching the latest blockbuster. On the other hand, Jean finally reached Xie Shang, who was on the brink of checking out to Nirvana. She gave him a life-saving kiss, transferring all the air from her lungs to his. After ensuring he had enough breath, she began to pull the total waist upwards. Just as Jean was about to reach the surface, the octopus snagged her legs with its tentacles once more. Summoning holy light, Jean called forth the divine sword of the gods and charged at the beast, driving her sword into its gaping maw, obliterating the interdimensional monster. As a reward for annihilating the monster, Xie Shang was awarded 14 interdimensional fragments and 1 abyssal scale. Impressed by Jean's decisive action, Zhang Yuan decided it was best that she yeet herself out of there before facing the same fate as the beast. Just as she was about to dip, Xie Shang, now conscious, called out to her, asking her not to leave. Later that night at Xie Shang's home, Jean enjoyed a steamy shower while Xie Shang and Zhang Yuan discussed the events of the day in the sitting room. Xie Shang tried to reason with Zhang Yuan, suggesting they should put aside their differences and team up against the interdimensional creatures. He argued that fighting each other was pointless when they could join forces for a greater cause. However, his voice of reasoning was useless to the dense girl. She explained that as long as interdimensional fragments existed, they would never truly be allies. She argued that defeating these creatures meant acquiring valuable fragments, which could be used to gain new skills, items, and wealth. Eliminating competitors hinting at the anomalies, she stated, was the smartest strategy. With that, Zhang Yuan reaffirmed her resolve to continue her relentless pursuit of other anomalies and warned Xie Shang to prepare himself for further attacks. She dashed out of the house, leaving Xie Shang pondering whether to follow her delusions or not. This is a brief history of the mobile game Xie Shang played. The game took place in a fantasy realm filled with swords, magic, and an array of races like humans, elves, and orcs all coexisting. A demon god named Agears leads his army of darkness, trying to take over the lands blessed by the goddess who ruled the game world. Players, of course, stepped into the shoes of heroes to take him down. Along the way, they'd meet charming boys, form bonds, and recruit them as commanders. Now, back to reality, Xie Shang sat in deep thought, reflecting on how, in the game, he was basically the Chuck Norris of that world. But here, in the real world, he was a noodle-armed sissy with fighting skills of an 80-years-old grandma. He realized that while he might not be out there trying to isekai other anomalies, there was no guarantee they'd show the same mercy toward him. So it was time to level the playing field by bringing all his baddest wives from the game into the real world. With that, he activated the cart interface system, transporting him to the interface environment. However, on getting into the cart interface environment, he sensed something was off. He didn't see the feisty pint-sized diva Alice as he had expected, leaving him stunned. That moment, he felt hands grab his enormous cranium, and then he was suffocated in something soft and warm. As he tried adjusting his head before he passed out, he looked up to find Alice and was stunned to see that the Kelvin heart-sized cat lady was now as tall as Anthony Davis, with all her assets fully pronounced. As he wondered what kind of abracadabra must have caused it, Alice informed him that, as an all-powerful system, she figured that Xie Shang liked his woman tall and hourglass-shaped, so she gave herself a total makeover to satisfy him better. After that, Alice told Xie Shang that she figured the reason he activated the card system was that he wanted to use his fragments to bring all his wives out of the game to the real world. However, she informed him that the interdimensional fragments weren't just to buy characters, but could also be used to beef up his fighting abilities and strengthen his skills, since he was as strong as a wet paper bag at the moment. Hearing this, Xie Shang realized she had a point. As the commander of the deadliest elite female squad, he couldn't afford to be a helpless weakling, always relying on his wives to bail him out. But now he was stuck with a dilemma. Should he use the fragments to bring his wives over or power up his own abilities? Unsure, he asked Alice for advice. The tall, hottie with massive gyat gave him a cheeky smile and advised him to go defeat more interdimensional monsters and stack up on fragments. Just then, he would have enough to both level up and summon his wives, which is a win-win situation. Taking her advice to heart, Xie Shang left the card system, vowing to return. Shortly after, while contemplating where he could find more monsters to slay, Jeannie strutted out of the bathroom in a scandalously short pink dress. One look at her and his senses evaporated, his nose exploding a geyser of blood. He was literally seconds away from passing out when he weakly begged Jean to put on something less sizzling, like a nightgown. Later, when bedtime rolled around, Xie Shang opted for the floor, offering the bed to Jean. But the temptress insisted he join her in bed, claiming it was her duty as a knight to protect her commander, and she couldn't do that if she weren't close to him. Not thinking straight, the King of Simps agreed to sleep beside her. However, the entire night was hard in more ways than one, as Jean spent the entire night making all sorts of happy noises and whispering words that sent Xie Shang's body temperature skyrocketing and his magnum reaching new levels of elasticity. The following morning, Xie Shang prepared for school, but Jean wouldn't stop insisting she had to stick to him like glue and guard him like a hawk for his own good. Xie Shang tried talking some sense into her stupid blonde head, telling her all the boys in school would have their pants down on seeing her, but Jean wouldn't cave. Realizing Jean won't let him go to school alone, Xie Shang activated the card system and told Alice that he had decided to draw a card. That instant, a card was drawn, and Xie Shang thought he would see his ninja wife, Tristana, who could hide in his shadow without being visible to protect him. However, after so many trials, the ballot card system kept dishing out stones and more stones, wasting his interdimensional fragments, causing Xia Shang to sweat buckets. However, just when he thought of giving up hope, the card system informed him that a random companion had been activated, which excited Xia Shang because he would finally get to see Tristana, his hot ninja wife. Right then, amidst a glowing red magical circle, appeared Chimera, the vampire girl who, upon seeing Xia Shang, pounced on him. Chimera is a character in the game whose father was a vampire prince and whose mother was a grand sorceress. She has a sister named Kate, with whom she shares both her father's and mother's abilities equally. Chimera inherited a father's vampire-like abilities, while Hecate inherited her mother's sorceress abilities. At that moment, Chimera, the thirsty bitch, was fired up, and she instantly wanted to develop some massive plot. So she kissed him to mark her territory and demanded he clapped her hard. Seeing this censored scene, Jean yelled at the lusty prowler to have some decency and stop behaving like a worthless hook. Upon hearing this merciless roasting, Chimera turned towards Jean and clapped back, calling her a blonde AI-generated gorilla and asking her to quit disturbing her moment. The two Magnum-seeking divas began to roast each other back to back, almost going head-to-head, but Xia Shang yelled at them to silence their filthy, disgusting mouths. Few minutes later, Xia Shang headed to school, but he decided to take Chimera instead because she could transform into a bat and hide inside his backpack, leaving Jean at home salty and enraged. During lunch break in school, Xia Shang was approached by Zhang Yuan, who asked him to meet her at the rooftop because she had something important to tell him. Once on the rooftop, Zhang Yuan revealed her intention to form a temporary alliance with Xia Shang. She explained that there was a location crawling with interdimensional monsters, and it would be too dangerous for her to tackle them solo. She proposed that they team up to defeat the creatures and collect the valuable interdimensional fragments. Zhang Yuan added that, since the monsters were dark-aligned, Jean's nightly powers that emitted bright lights would be perfect for the job. Hearing this, Xia Shang was shocked that Zhang Yuan knew about Jean's abilities, prompting her to admit that she had done some digging into his wife. Realizing that Zhang Yuan had been snooping into his private life, Xia Shang decided to turn the tables by dropping a bombshell of his own. He casually mentioned that the last time she fought Jean, she had used a handsome guy character named Kang Lian. This revelation stunned Zhang Yuan, who wondered how Xia Shang knew about that. As Xia Shang continued to talk about Kang Lian, he quickly realized that Zhang Yuan was a psychotic yandere, completely obsessed with the character. Enraged, Zhang Yuan warned him not to speak about her hot stuff so casually. Summoning her Thunder Strike powers, she threatened that Xia Shang would meet his end soon. Before she could strike, a voice whispered in her ear, commenting on her delicious blood, which left her stunned. Chimera, who had transformed, appeared and grabbed Zhang Yuan, introducing herself as Xia Shang's legal wife. Zhang Yuan, who was shocked by the appearance of a new character called Xia Shang, a weakling who summoned girls to fight his battles. Chimera, unfazed, informed Zhang Yuan that since she dared to threaten her husband, it was time to teach her a lesson. In a blink, Chimera unleashed her seductive demon eyes, a power capable of hypnotizing and brainwashing anyone to obey her commands. With Zhang Yuan under her spell, Chimera ordered her to strip down to her last plot armor and run downstairs. Horrified, Xia Shang quickly commanded Chimera to stop, knowing that such an act would create chaos in the school, exactly what he wanted to avoid. Chimera, the thirsty bitch who would do anything to get laid, demanded that Xia Shang kiss her passionately if he wanted her to stop the hypnosis. Xia Shang's face flushed red at the ultimatum. Left with no choice, he moved to kiss her, but before their lips could even touch, a blue flame ball shot between them, interrupting the moment. Somehow Zhang Yuan had broken free from Chimera's hypnosis, leaving the vampire girl in shock. Chimera couldn't believe Zhang Yuan had escaped her spell and realized she had seriously underestimated her. That moment, both girls prepared for battle, Chimera unleashing her demonic fire, while Zhang Yuan summoned her blue electric flames. Xia Shang, on the other hand, begged them to stop the madness, knowing that this escalating confrontation would cause a full-blown frenzy at school. After much pleading, he finally managed to talk some sense into the stubborn pair. Still fuming, Zhang Yuan stormed off the rooftop, reminding Xia Shang not to abandon her when it came time to fight the interdimensional monsters. With Zhang Yuan gone, Xia Shang ordered Chimera to transform back into a bat, which she obediently did. Meanwhile, unable to stay calm and feeling something was wrong, Jean left the house and headed toward Xia Shang's school, determined to check on him and make sure everything was okay. Even though she knew it was a terrible idea, Jean somehow found herself at Xishang's school. The moment Xishang spotted her near the entrance, he groaned internally, wondering why the nutcase had shown up. Camera, who was in her useless bat form, wasn't surprised to see the wacko with her Karen haircut. Since Jean was already there, Xishang pulled her aside to a secluded spot and filled her in on the situation with Zhang Yuan, explaining that her help would be needed later that night to take down some interdimensional monsters. Xishang also made it clear that, since he was pretty much useless, he wouldn't be joining the fight but would cheer them on from the sidelines like a Pokemon trainer. Then, a thought hit him. Jean would need some extra protection since she'd be leading the charge in battle. So later that day, Xishang activated the card system and asked Alice to upgrade Jean's defenses. Alice then equipped Jean with the most ridiculous outfit, a fluffy pink bunny armor that made her look like the unofficial mascot for a failed cereal brand. Jean was outraged, yelling that she'd rather drink her own vomit than wear such an absurd getup. Alice then disclosed to Jean, telling her not to worry since she could conceal the armor until it was actually needed. Jean grumbled but reluctantly accepted the upgrade. Later that night, the team arrived at the site of the interdimensional monsters. As they got there, they saw Zhang Yuan already waiting for them, dressed in a skimpy gown with her thick thighs exposed. Xishang's heart practically skipped a beat, and he immediately asked if he could add her to his harem. Zhang Yuan shot him down, saying she preferred her men older and alpha. As they ventured deeper into the area, Xishang couldn't help but think it seemed pretty ordinary. He didn't see how any monsters could be lurking here. But Zhang Yuan assured him that all kinds of creatures from the fantasy world roamed these parts. As they continued, Xishang suddenly caught a whiff of a disgusting pungent aura. He was puzzled, wondering why there was such a strong scent of blood. Cameron, on the other hand, was practically giddy, confessing that the strong smell of blood was doing all sorts of things to her body.
Stop it. Get some help.
Jean, naturally disgusted, called Camera a freak, which sparked yet another petty confrontation between the two. While the bickering carried on, a figure lurked in the shadows, Morrigan, quietly spying on them from a distance. Just as they took a few more steps, the team suddenly spotted a horde of ugly, grotesque zombies shambling towards them. The zombies had them completely surrounded, closing in from all sides. As they charged forward, Jeannie summoned her divine weapon, the Light of God Holy Sword. With swift, precise slashes, she cut through the horde, the blinding light radiating from the sword, roasting their ugly asses like overcooked sushi. Watching Jean bask in all the glory, Chimera, feeling salty and left out, decided to join the action. She activated her death absorption skill, instantly draining the last 10% of the zombies' life force, making sure to snag some of the spotlight. With the combined efforts of the two girls, Xishang was rewarded with interdimensional fragments. Zhang Yuan, noticing this, called him the luckiest guy alive. After all, he was the only anomaly with the power to summon characters to fight on his behalf. After her comment, Zhang Yuan activated her Frost Descent ability, unleashing a sub-zero snowstorm that froze 80% of the remaining zombies in their tracks. Xishang, stunned by her overpowering move, wondered aloud why she had even asked for his help when she could clearly handle herself. Zhang Yuan, on the other hand, explained that his help would be needed further inside, as the zombies were nothing compared to the S-rank demons lurking ahead. A few minutes later, they continued deeper into the facility. Upon entering, Xishang found it odd that such a massive place had been completely overrun by demons. Zhang Yuan explained that regular humans wouldn't be able to access this space as it existed in a separate dimension. Before they could go any further, Jing suddenly warned Xishang that she sensed a malicious intent aimed at them. Moments later, a teleportation circle appeared above their heads, sending a chill down their spines. In the blink of an eye, they were whisked away to different locations. Jean found herself in a dark, gloomy graveyard, facing off against a masked freak wielding a chainsaw, the graveyard's sadistic guardian. Camera was teleported to an ancient fortress crawling with misty demons, while Xishang ended up in an old, eerie construction site. Bewildered, he wondered where the heck everyone else was. As he tried to get his bearings, Xishang was greeted by a familiar figure, hot nurse named Morgan, the same demon who had once attacked him alongside other demons. He immediately asked her if she was the one responsible for casting the teleportation spell that separated him from his wives. Morgan, with a sly smile, revealed that she wasn't behind the spell but was there because she was hunting down an anomaly with the power to control various monsters. Meanwhile, in another part of the facility, Jiang Yuan was captured by a mysterious, deranged anomaly. Back at the graveyard, the masked fat-faced circus freak attempted a sneak attack, but Jean shattered his mask with a single one-punch, man sending him crashing to the ground. Meanwhile, Chimera faced off against a white-haired vampire, whom she promptly eliminated with her mystic energy. At the same time, Jiang Yuan found herself abducted by a bug-eyed creep disguised in a golem mask. Introducing himself as Diana, he bragged about his love for horror movies. But Jiang Yuan couldn't care less about who the idiot was or his cultured interests, demanding he release her immediately. However, Diana insisted on keeping her for his personal entertainment, revealing that modern horror movies were too tame for his taste, and he now preferred to shoot his own with realistic effects. He even bragged about using his control over ghosts to isekai people onto his twisted movie sets. Meanwhile, Morrigan revealed to Xia Shang that the anomaly she was hunting could create illusions to infiltrate the minds of its victims, trapping them in their worst nightmares. Concerned for Jiang Yuan's safety, Xia Shang knew he had to save her. But just as he was about to rush off, Morrigan stopped him, proposing a temporary alliance since they shared a common enemy. Xia Shang initially refused, telling her he'd rather drink someone else's urine than team up with her. Morrigan, unimpressed, warned that if he went alone, his bones would be crushed by the monsters. Realizing he was too much of a spineless coward to survive on his own and always relying on his wives, Xia Shang reluctantly agreed to the partnership. Morrigan was now his only option. Back at the graveyard, Jean, still searching for the rest of the squad, began to sense that something terrible was about to happen. Her mind started playing tricks on her, and she began to hallucinate, seeing herself shackled and judged for abandoning her country during a war. As she was sentenced to death and dragged away to be executed, the illusion felt terrifyingly real. At the same time, Chimera continued searching for her husband and the others when she suddenly encountered her sister Vacate, but it was just another illusion crafted by Diana, the puppet master. Vacate wasted no time mocking Chimera, roasting her by saying she was every carpenter's dream, flat as a board and easy to nail. Enraged by the insult, Chimera summoned her fiery electricity, ready to fry Vacate's troglodyte face. Meanwhile, Diana decided it was Jiang Yuan's turn to face her worst nightmare. Curious but nervous, Jiang Yuan wondered what that would be. Before she could dwell on it, Diana transformed into a seductive zombie with humongous chesticles, which terrified Jiang Yuan because there was nothing she hated more than hot zombies. As all this chaos unfolded, Xia Shang and Morrigan continued searching for the team. Morrigan revealed that by now, each of them was likely trapped in their worst nightmares, and if they didn't act fast, they'd be enslaved to the illusions forever. Xia Shang, suspicious of Morrigan's immunity, asked why she wasn't affected by the nightmares. With a sly grin, Morrigan revealed that as a succubus, such weak illusions couldn't touch her. She then made Xia Shang an offer. She could help him enter his team's nightmares and rescue them for a price. Intrigued, Xia Shang asked her what she wanted in return. Morrigan smirked and told him she'd help, but only in exchange for a small favor. Xia Shang, still curious, asked Morrigan what favor she wanted, but she only smirked and told him he'd find out when the time was right. With no time to waste, Xia Shang asked her to help him fall asleep so he could enter the dreamland and rescue his wives. Morrigan obliged, casting a spell that filled the air with a soft, dusty sensation, making Xia Shang feel dizzy. He collapsed, his head landing comfortably on Morrigan's heavenly pillows. Soon he found himself in the dream world. As he wandered through the dreamscape searching for his wives, Xia Shang stumbled upon Alice. Surprised, he asked how she ended up in the dreamland. Alice, with her usual confidence, revealed that as the strongest card-drawing system, she could enter any place she pleased. Xia Shang, with his alarm clock brain, asked her to help him locate the girls in the dream. Amused by his mushroom brain, Alice explained that it was easy since he had a special connection with all the girls he summoned. Realizing Xia Shang wasn't getting it, Alice decided to guide him directly. After walking for a while, she pointed him toward a door and instructed him to go through it. Xia Shang, trusting her, stepped through the door. On the other side, he found Jean tied up at the stake like a witch, about to be burned alive by an angry mob. The scene looked eerily familiar, straight out of the game. Xia Shang quickly spotted two random side characters in the crowd. One of them, a dude with an ugly alien face who looked like he escaped Men in Black, called Jean an arrogant girl who deserved to be burned. Xia Shang immediately recognized the villain. It was Cocteau, the antagonist from the game, the one who conspired with demons to frame Jean. Realizing the only way to save Jean was to wake her from this nightmare, Xie Shang pushed through the angry mob, shouting her name. His voice soon broke through to Jean, who began to realize that the horrific scene around her wasn't real. It was all an illusion. As the memories of the real world flooded back to her, Jean became fully aware of the nightmare she was trapped in. Suddenly, she began to glow like the sun, a light so bright it stunned Cocteau. He stood frozen, confused as to how Jean had broken free from the illusion. With a powerful explosion, the sky erupted, disintegrating the crowd and Cocteau into nothingness. The glassy barrier of the hallucination shattered into pieces, freeing Jean. Meanwhile, the hot zombie continued tormenting Jiang Yuan, while Diana, eager to see the rest of the team still suffering in their nightmares, turned his attention to the other dream scenes. But to his shock, he saw Xie Shang carrying Jean, now completely freed from his manipulation. The sight left him stunned, realizing his grip over the dreamland was slipping. Later that night, after rescuing Jean, Xie Shang and his newly freed wife were led to a door where they would find Chimera. Upon entering, they were immediately thrown into the middle of an intense battle between Chimera and her sister Hecate. Hecate was clearly holding back, shielding herself with magic, unwilling to harm her sister. Chimera, however, was unleashing powerful flames, furiously demanding Hecate stop holding back and fight her seriously. The flames only intensified, and the sight of her attacks being easily deflected drove Chimera's anger to new heights. Xie Shang, realizing Chimera was pushing herself to the brink and might collapse from the strain, rushed to her and grabbed her hand, firmly ordering her to stop the moronic fight. But his intervention only made Chimera more emotional. She couldn't believe her husband was siding with Hecate, the very sister she resented. Tears welling up, Chimera confessed the deep-rooted pain she had carried since childhood. She spoke of how she'd been ridiculed and discriminated against for inheriting their father's useless vampire abilities, while Hecate had always been revered for possessing their mother's powerful magic. Chimera's anguish was clear. This wasn't just about the fight, it was years of pent-up resentment. Seeing there was no way to calm her down with words alone, Xie Shang thought up a 500 IQ move that would school even Einstein. Without warning, he pulled Chimera into a deep kiss, shocking her into silence. The kiss was so intense that Jean nearly combusted with jealousy. When it ended, Xie Shang gently told Chimera to stop feeling inferior to her sister. He reminded her that she had him as her husband, a great advantage that no magic or power could compare to. His words touched Chimera, and she slowly relaxed, apologizing for acting like a complete nutjob. At that moment, Hecate stepped forward, summoning a magical teleportation orb. She informed them that Diana, the mastermind behind the hallucinations, was waiting for them and that she would teleport the team to confront him. But before she activated the spell, Hecate had a heartfelt conversation with Chimera. She asked her to let go of the hatred she harbored and to stop getting so agitated every time they met. It was time to move on from their childhood rivalry. Turning to Xie Shang, Hecate made a surprising offer. She told him that she'd like to join his harem as well, assuring him that her magical skills would be invaluable. The self-proclaimed king of harems grinned and promised that she would definitely be part of his future summons. With that, the teleportation path opened, and the team stepped through. On the other side, they were met by Diana, the puppet master behind their torment. Chimera, without a second thought, unleashed a wave of flames so hot it could roast the devil himself, blasting straight at Diana. Upon seeing Xie Shang and his wives, Diana froze, but it was a mere facade to buy himself time, preparing to launch his own attack. Meanwhile, Jiang Yuan felt a surge of relief, excited to be reunited with her team and freed from the nightmare. However, at that moment, Diana thought of the best approach to attack, so he pondered the possibility of transforming into a monster from their scariest nightmare. So, without wasting time, Diana transformed into the monster of the team's most terrifying nightmare, but was shocked to see himself looking like Morgan. With a sly smile, Xie Shang thought it made sense that the circus freak transformed into Morgan, because the crazy-ass demon almost isekai'd him a few days before. On seeing the rubbish he transformed into, Diana started screaming that it wasn't supposed to be this way and he had been tricked. However, the team was done giving him screen time, so Chimera summoned blood chains that restrained Diana in midair, and Jean grabbed his neck and then burned him with the scorching intensity of the sun. That moment, the card system notified Xie Shang that he had successfully eliminated an anomaly, and he had been awarded 20 interdimensional fragments and 800 characters experience. The card system also informed Xie Shang that due to the elimination of the anomaly, the system would undergo an update and then unlock additional features. Shortly afterwards, the girls were teleported back to the warehouse where the whole craziness started, and they woke Xia Shang, who was still asleep. Just then, Xia Shang woke up to find his entire harem in front of him. So he explained that he sought Morgan's help in bringing them back from the nightmare, which Zhang Yuan didn't take lightly, because Morgan was a deceptive, cunning witch who should never be trusted in any capacity. However, before Xia Shang could finish his explanation, he felt a sudden burning sensation on his neck, so he noticed he had been kissed by the evil succubus, hinting at Morgan. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, Morgan visited another anomaly, and after eliminating him, she retrieved his book called The Secrets of the Demon Maggot. As the team walked out of the warehouse, Xia Shang still sensed the revolting aura of the place. Zhang Yuan explained that it was natural for him to feel it, as the location had once hosted a gathering of demons, and there might still be some lurking in the shadows. As they continued, Zhang Yuan thanked Xia Shang for saving her, promising to repay the favor. A few minutes later, they finally exited the warehouse. Zhang Yuan then expressed her gratitude to the team for joining forces with her. However, he cautioned them to avoid being so reckless next time, as their behavior had seriously put her on edge. Xia Shang, hearing this, began to wonder if Zhang Yuan was genuinely concerned about him. Later that night, the team returned home. Jean enjoyed a shower plot with her hands. Meanwhile, Xia Shang, finally looking forward to some downtime on the sofa, found his peace disrupted by camera. She approached him, looking pale, and he immediately asked what was wrong. Chimera explained that during the battle with her sister, she had overexerted herself using blood magic, draining much of her magical energy. As she advanced toward him with a suspicious look, Chimera asked Xia Shang for help to replenish her magic. Alarmed, Xia Shang nervously asked if she intended to suck his blood. With a teasing smile, Chimera clarified that although she was a vampire, magic replenishment didn't always involve blood. This time, she needed a different kind of creamy fluid. Moments later, Xia Shang was left utterly drained and exhausted after their intense plot. Just then, Jean stepped out of the bathroom and noticed Xia Shang looking like he had dodged a bath for 10 years. Suspicious, she demanded to know what Chimera had done to him. Chimera casually replied that they had just done what any couple would, downplaying the situation. Later that night, as they'd all got into bed, Xia Shang found himself sweating more than Patrick Ewing, uncomfortable being so close to the two women. He asked if he could sleep on the sofa instead, but Jean and Chimera wouldn't let him. They were too competitive to allow the other to be alone with him. With no choice, Xia Shang stayed in bed with them. A few minutes later, Chimera began to fondle him, hinting that she wanted another round of magic replenishing. Xia Shang, now fully recharged, agreed to some more plot development. However, their moment was interrupted by Jean, who had been pretending to sleep but overheard everything. She insisted on joining in, but Xia Shang, too exhausted, promised they'd give it a try another time. Later, Xia Shang activated the card system. Upon entering, he noticed the theme had changed. It now felt like a haunted house. Suddenly, Alice appeared and explained that due to the recent system update, the system had absorbed some attributes from the anomaly Xia Shang had destroyed. She also informed him about new features, item synthesis and character exclusive. Alice explained that character exclusive increased his chances of drawing specific characters, while item synthesis allowed him to combine low-level items to create higher-tier ones. Alice went on to explain that with the new system features, Xia Shang could also forge higher-tier weapons, significantly boosting his combat abilities. Excited, Xia Shang immediately requested they start crafting a weapon for him. Using the low-level items already in the system, Alice fused them together, creating a powerful high-tier weapon named the Nightblade. Alice then revealed that the character-exclusive feature didn't just allow Xia Shang to summon new characters, but also obtain exclusive items for them. Since Xia Shang's brain cells worked backwards, Alice clarified that he could unlock character-specific outfits from the system's pool, like swimsuits or bunny outfits. Hearing this, Xia Shang became thrilled and eagerly asked to try out a school uniform. The next morning, Xia Shang told Jean he had a surprise for her. At his command, Alice switched Jean's outfit, transforming it into a school uniform that resembled Xia Shang's. He explained that with this outfit, Jean could now accompany him to school without drawing unwanted attention. Chimera, feeling jealous, asked why she didn't get a cute school uniform as well. Xia Shang told her that her resource draw wasn't unlocked yet, leaving Chimera with a sour expression. Later that day, Jean sat beside Xie Shang in class, attempting to learn with him. However, the bonehead couldn't handle the overload, and she eventually zoned out. When it was time for PE, Xie Shang reminded Jean they had to change outfits, but she was already lost in a mental fog from all the information. During PE, two random ugly bullies noticed Xie Shang hanging out with Jean, the new and beautiful exchange student. Jealous and irritated, they decided to teach him a lesson by inviting him to play basketball, planning to injure him during the game. Xie Shang, seeing no harm, agreed to play. On the court, Xie Shang performed some leg movements like Michael Jordan, which only irritated the bullies further. They thought he was showing off for the girls. One of the bullies, determined to take Xie Shang down, tried to elbow him out of the way, but the moment he collided with Xie Shang, it felt like hitting a speeding train. The bully immediately crashed to the ground like a piece of garbage. The humiliated bully began complaining about unfair treatment, demanding an apology from Xie Shang. Just then, Zhang Yuan walked in and told the complete imbecile that if he wanted an apology, he could get it from the devil in hell. Zhang Yuan then approached Xie Shang, teasing him for being a sly trickster who managed to sneak his wife into the school undetected. Before leaving, she leaned in and casually invited Xie Shang to her house later that night, which left Xie Shang completely stunned. Xie Shang wondered why Zhang Yuan wanted him to come to her place, but she left him, telling him he would understand when he came. Later that day, Xie Shang and Jean had a conversation, during which he promised to help her catch up with her schoolwork so she could blend in better. Jean then showed him a math problem she was struggling with, and upon seeing the complex mathematical problem, Xie Shang's soul nearly left his body. He quickly told her they'd discuss the problem another time, dodging the situation. That evening, Xie Shang and Jean arrived at Zhang Yuan's mansion, and Xie Shang found it hard to believe that someone like her lived in such luxury. He had always imagined Zhang Yuan, who constantly acted like a mean girl, living under a bridge somewhere in Detroit. Soon after, Zhang Yuan revealed the real reason she invited Xie Shang to her home. She wanted to form a permanent alliance with him. Surprised, Xie Shang asked why she had suddenly decided to align with him. Zhang Yuan explained that she had used her divination abilities to foresee an ominous future. She sensed they were being targeted by a powerful anomaly or creature from another realm. Xie Shang wondered if this was just a ploy to use him as her personal bodyguard. Skeptical, he asked why she needed to bring him all the way to her mansion when she could have just told him at school. Zhang Yuan explained that her home was protected by talismans, and for confidentiality purposes, she wanted to discuss it somewhere secure. She also hinted that her mansion could become their stronghold if he agreed to the alliance. Realizing this was a chance to enjoy the comforts of luxury in all his pathetic life, Xie Shang quickly agreed to the partnership. Kimura, on the other hand, saw it as an opportunity to stop sharing a bed with both her husband and the blonde twat, hinting at Jean. This comment instantly set Jean off, and the two began their usual verbal roasting session. Zhang Yuan, however, was taken aback by the revelation that Xie Shang was actually sleeping in the same bed with both Kimura and Jean. Her mind raced with wild thoughts, imagining all the unspeakable things that must have been happening every night. A few minutes later, the girls indulged in the luxuries of the mansion, enjoying a relaxing bath, although Kimura would have preferred to bathe in blood. That night, as Xie Shang lay sound asleep like a cozy log, Zhang Yuan, who had cast a sleep spell on him earlier, entered his room with a wicked grin. She knew he had let his guard down, and it was the perfect moment to act. Seconds later, she summoned a hot zombie girl, instructing her to drain Xie Shang's yang energy. The zombie climbed on top of him, preparing to absorb his life force, ready to siphon away his energy. The zombie girl wasted no time, pulling back the bedsheet covering Xie Shang's magnum region, preparing to siphon his yang energy directly from there. But before she could proceed, Zhang Yuan panicked and yelled at the zombie freak to stop, warning that Xie Shang's wives could barge in at any moment. Before the zombie could get off him, Xie Shang regained consciousness. As he opened his eyes, he freaked out and quickly adjusted himself, demanding to know what was going on. Zhang Yuan was shocked and wondered how the balloon head had woken up despite the sleep spell she had cast. At that moment, Kimura knocked on the door, demanding to sleep with Xie Shang. Her presence alarmed Xie Shang and his unexpected visitors, who quickly hid behind the door. Kimura entered, but despite sensing something off in the room, she dismissed the feeling. She then informed Xie Shang that since Jean was asleep, they could continue developing their plot. Before Kimura could say more, Jean suddenly appeared and whispered in her ear that no one was getting any plots developed tonight. Jean also reminded Kamiru that they had agreed to let the commander rest. Startled, Kamiru was dragged out of the room by Jean. With the heat-seeking girls gone, Sita Shang turned to Zhang Yuan and demanded an explanation about the zombie girl. Zhang Yuan, flustered, explained that she needed to replenish her yang energy and apologized for her scummy behavior. She admitted she should have asked Xia Shang for permission instead of trying to steal it while he slept. Reluctantly, Xia Shang agreed to help, allowing the zombie girl to siphon his yang energy. The zombie girl wasted no time and got to work, draining him from his willy. Meanwhile, Kamiru, annoyed by Jean's constant interruptions during her private moments with Xia Shang, realized Jean was intentionally trying to frustrate her. In frustration, Kamiru suggested they settle it once and for all by having a harem plot where they could all be satisfied. Jean considered the idea for a moment but quickly rejected it, saying she could never trust the Batgirl Kamiru. Elsewhere in the city, Morrigan met with her sister, Auralia, to discuss recent events. Morrigan revealed she had obtained the secrets of the demonic maggot and informed Auralia that Xia Shang and his crew had eliminated Diana. Auralia was shocked. Diana had always been skilled at staying hidden. Morrigan suggested they find a replacement, but Auralia disagreed, stating that instead of a replacement, they needed to expand their ranks. She mentioned that there were still plenty of villains in the world they could recruit as allies. As they discussed their plans, the building suddenly shook violently, like an earthquake. Startled, Morrigan asked if they were under attack or if it was a natural disaster. Auralia calmly informed her that the tremors were caused by a prisoner who had just escaped. At that moment, a mysterious cloaked figure appeared and informed the sisters that instead of waiting for the anomalies to destroy each other, he would handle them. The next day after school, Xia Shang and his wives walked down the street, heading home. Jean noticed Xia Shang was looking weak and pale, like he'd developed an intense plot with a ghost. Concerned, she asked what could be causing his sudden, hideous look. The truth was that Xia Shang's yang energy had been drained daily by the zombie girl, leaving him weak and worn, as if his life force was slowly being sucked away. However, to cover up their activities, Zhang Yuan quickly explained to Jean that Xia Shang was just struggling to adjust to his new bed. As they continued their conversation, the mysterious cloaked figure appeared in front of them, the evil man sent by Morrigan and her sister Dorelia. Noticing the man's ominous stare, Xia Shang demanded to know what he wanted. The evil figure sneered, revealing that he had come to end all their miserable lives. Xia Shang, now enraged by the man's audacity, pointed out that he clearly wanted to fight, but noted that they were in the middle of the street, making it impossible to battle properly. The cloaked villain then revealed that he had already cast a spell on the surroundings, driving away all onlookers and bystanders. At that moment, the villain then welcomed them to his world, the realm of the cursed blood of Azura. Hearing this, Xia Shang's eyes widened in shock. He remembered reading about the cursed blood of Azura in a manga years ago, and wondered if this guy was also from another world. Jean, however, had heard enough. Summoning her heavenly sword, she leaped into the sky like a fierce warrior, attempting to land a decisive strike. But her attack was as useless as Xia Shang's disgusting face, as the evil figure effortlessly smacked her, sending her crashing to the ground, landing hard on her ass. Seeing this, Zhang Yuan quickly prepared herself for battle. Realizing that the man excelled in hand-to-hand combat, she decided to keep her distance and use a ranged attack. With swift grace, she launched herself into the sky and summoned the power of the divine thunder strike, sending a massive surge of electricity towards the villain. But like Jean's attack, it proved ineffective. The evil man countered with a powerful energy wave of his own, which exploded in midair, sending shockwaves that shattered the top of a nearby building. With his wives being easily overpowered, Xia Shang's thoughts turned to his final wife, Kamiru. Unfortunately, she was at home, perfecting the protective barrier around their house, leaving Xia Shang to face the enemy alone. At that moment, Xia Shang frantically thought of all the possible ways he could defeat the menacing enemy before him. But being the pathetic weakling that he was, his half-brain couldn't come up with anything useful. Just then Jean, though badly injured, returned and assured Xia Shang that she would buy him time to escape. However, Xia Shang wasn't the kind of man to abandon his comrades, let alone his sweetheart. Determined to stand his ground, Xia Shang called upon Alice, asking her to activate all of Jean's exclusive packages and items. Alice complied without hesitation. In an instant, all of Jean's skills were fully activated, and she was even granted the legendary holy sword, Break Steel. The random villain noticed the shift in power and realized Jean was now far stronger, leveling the playing field. Without wasting any time, the cloaked figure charged at Jean, intending to strike her down. But Jean, in a flash, teleported behind him, her movements faster than the eye could follow. With no hesitation, she sliced through his vile form with the holy sword, her blade cutting through his body with divine might. Zhang Yuan, who had just arrived, asked Xie Shang if they had finally defeated the mysterious enemy. Xie Shang shook his head and explained that according to the manga he had read, the Azura demon had 9 lives like a cat. He warned that with each defeat, the demon would grow stronger and become immune to the attack that had previously defeated him. Their best option, Xie Shang suggested, was to leave before the Azura demon resurrected once again. Hours later, after Xie Shang and his crew had left, the Azura prince resurrected. Seething with rage, he swore to hunt them down no matter where they went, having memorized their aura with disgust. Back at their home, the team gathered to debrief Chimera on what had happened. Xie Shang explained that the Azura Lord was essentially at a boss level. Hearing this, Chimera revealed that she had already fortified the house with a defensive barrier, making it difficult for the demon to breach. She then proposed a strategy. While she and Zhang Yuan would battle the Azura demon, Jean should take Xie Shang and escape through the back. However, Xie Shang quickly disagreed, asserting that he would never leave anyone behind. Just then, the ominous sound of boss music filled the air. As they peered out the window, they saw the Azura demon approaching. He had already slashed through Chimera's protective barrier. That moment, Chimera and Zhang Yuan prepared themselves for battle and headed outside to face the demon. Meanwhile, inside, Jean insisted that she and Xie Shang should flee, but Xie Shang refused again, reiterating that he would never abandon his team. Jean was deeply concerned as her sole mission was to protect the commander, and Xie Shang's stubbornness was making that difficult. She silently prayed for guidance. In that moment, Alice appeared out of nowhere. She revealed to Xie Shang that the only way he could defeat the Azura boss was by uniting his body and mind with his wives, merging their strength as one. Xie Shang was stunned as he had no idea how he could accomplish such a task. Will Xie Shang and his wives be able to unite their strength and defeat the Azura demon? Comment Game Wives if you're eager to find out in our part 2. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. As always, thanks for watching.